Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we are live. All right. So this is the inaugural meeting of the Advisory Committee on Homelessness, July 14th, 2026 in Council Chambers. My name is Carolyn Lear. I'm the city manager in Bangor. And because you all have not had the opportunity to elect a chair yet, and I suspect you might like to think about that decision a little bit, if it's okay with you, I had planned to lead you through the agenda for this evening. And then first thing during our second meeting, which will likely be our first sort of substantive meeting, we can nominate and elect a chair if that works for everyone. All right, so the bulk of our time today will likely be with a legal and ethics training from our city solicitor, Dave Sevchek. But before we roll into that, I thought it might be nice if folks were interested in going around the table as well as the dais behind us and doing introductions, a couple lines about your background, and if you wish, why you're excited to be participating in this committee or why you are motivated to apply. Like to start, and you unfortunately sat directly next to me, so.
Good afternoon or evening, everybody. My name is Alton Buzzle. I am the Director of Marketing for Hollywood Casino. I also serve as the Vice President of the Board of Directors for Downtown Bangor Partnership. I wanted to apply and be a part of this committee because obviously this is an issue that impacts all of us and it impacts our business community. And so I felt very strongly that our business community needed to have a voice to be here to share how the impact of the things that we propose may impact them. So excited to be here. Hi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steele Vasquez. My pronouns are they, them. I am a Bangor area activist and organizer. I work in the recovery community and the unhoused community. Over the past year, I have worked really hard to forge as many relationships as I can on the ground with the unhoused community. And it really has been a blessing for my life and has improved my skills of advocacy greatly. So I'm grateful for that experience. And I feel that it's the least that I can do to give back to that community that has taught me so much about empathy and how to be a better human in Bangorian to try and represent their voices here in the advisory.
Hi, my name is Jason Goodrich. My friends call me Jay. I moved up here to Bangor, the Bangor region in 1997. Fresh out of college with a fresh new wife and a new baby to become a crisis worker. During that time, I worked predominantly with people who were unhoused. Continued my education, became a forensic intensive case manager with the Department of Health and Human Services, and worked at the intersection of public safety, mental health, behavioral health, recovery, both doing in jail, in reach, and homeless outreach for about 18 years here in Bangor. I'm also someone in long-term recovery. I have a brain injury, and those experiences bring a lot to what I hope to bring here to this committee are my experiences. Today, I serve as on a board of a state institutional governmental institutionality, which is an advocacy organization for people in behavioral health services. I've done that work for about 10 years. And what I hope to bring to this table is an understanding both of the systems and of the personal and professional experiences that have caused homelessness. I don't believe that homelessness is one problem. I believe it's a collection of problems that manifest itself in the way that it does. We have folks that are experiencing different levels of behavioral health needs, different levels of recovery needs, different levels of housing needs. Some folks are in the midst of domestic violence situations, and none of those situations are any one individual thing. I think we have to realize that what we're looking at here is a collection of issues that we all are going to have to talk about to great depth. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward to more conversations with you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anthony Ng. Everyone call me Tony. I'm a psychiatrist and Dr. Ng. I work both at Acadia and East Maine. I've been up in Bangor area for about 16, 17 years. It's pretty quick. I've been working on homeless communities and homeless mental health issues and health issues for about 20 years, 30 years, in different settings in New York City, DC, and other places. And and I've done stuff between anywhere from shelter system clinics to being out on the street and working with the folks. Because I see so many of those patients coming through emergency room, which is why I feel, you know, if I could be part of that solution, not just on the clinical side, but at a higher level. What's challenging about figuring out a solution for working with this population is the fact that the solution changes constantly. So we could come up with a nice set of recommendations, and within 6 months, something outside change the dynamics, and then we got to come up again. So it's my hope that the committees not only have the solution, but develop a mechanism to deal with ongoing challenges that, you know, that's going to happen now, 5 years from now. So.
My name is Brittany Denham. I'm one of the senior directors of social work for Preble Street. I was born and raised in Bangor and then moved away promptly when I was 17 years old and didn't expect to be back in Bangor. But about 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to come back to Bangor as Preble Street was stepping in to take over operations of the Hope House shelter from PCHC. I have had the extreme gift to be here since in some capacity. And so I have spent most of my career doing homeless services in some version or another in lots of different places, but have seen certainly how those services are impacting communities in different spots, whether it's big cities or small towns or, you know, the biggest small towns in different states. And it's fascinating to me, like, what is different and what is similar sort of across the board. And so similar to Tony, I think I have seen a lot of times that that we come up with a plan and the plans change. And so I think when I was interested in this, it was also about sustainability and making sure that the voices of the people that we're serving really are front and center to that, but also that we're sort of following best practice and what, you know, what is going to be best for both the community that we're serving and the community at large, which I think weighing both of those things can be super challenging. And now we're doing that thoughtfully.
Hi, I'm Melissa Rhodes. I am currently the Director of Property Management for Bangor Housing. So I oversee public, multifamily, affordable, 55 and older tax credit properties, many. I've been there 14 years. I've seen, you know, I've housed the hardest, and unfortunately, you know, my goal here too is to keep the housed and house the unhoused appropriately and with supports, and see if we can get the community rallied together to make it work. You know, it's sad. It's very sad when you see them and you want it to work, but then the services don't work for them. And then, you know, if I'm letting somebody go, we are at our end where we have to, and I don't want to see that anymore. Before this, I oversaw many intellectual and mental health group homes. And so I've worked in that capacity and personal support programs. So been there, you know, I think I can add a lot to what our goal is here. And I'm excited to work together.
I'm Amy West. I'm a nurse practitioner with PCHC, and I have worked in homeless health for about 18 years. I was a nurse and a nurse practitioner with Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program before I moved to Maine. And since coming to Maine, I've specialized in homeless medicine for primary care for individuals that are experiencing homelessness and addiction medicine. So I provide street medicine. I've provided street medicine in Bangor for about 5 years now, and have walked this path with countless individuals and see how incredibly difficult it can be. The systems that we have set up that really don't always serve the folks that are trying to access that system. And that also applies to folks that are vulnerably housed or newly housed. And I just feel strongly that having a diverse committee, we can kind of tackle it from multiple angles and multiple viewpoints and try to come up with that long-term sustainable, rapidly evolving and ever-changing plan that will help the community as a whole, and not just people that are currently experiencing homeless, but people as they become newly housed or were housed and become unhoused.
I'm Ben Treat. I'm the director of the Bangor Public Library, and we've been a place where there have been lots of unhoused folks. So for the past well, 40, 50 years, but like especially the past 5 years, and we are not alone in that. Libraries across the country are experiencing this, usually in urban centers or in service centers. And you can decide which one we are in Bangor. It depends on your view of what urban means, but we're not alone in that, and we try to learn lessons from our library colleagues, but we also learn a lot of lessons from folks who are on the table here. We've benefited so much from the services that are provided by all the different agencies that you see and organizations that you see, as well as others. So the reason I'm very enthusiastic about being here is that I want to think about ways that we can all have a template for working together, and also ways that we can communicate all the work that's being done, because I think people don't necessarily see that. They see the end result, which is continued inflow, which is part of the national condition that we're in of people who are unhoused, and they don't see all of the work that's being done and all the successes that are happening. So I think being able to communicate those successes as well as the challenges and find solutions to the challenges is what excites me about this.
My name is Pat Keeley. I'm a certified peer recovery coach for the Penobscot County Overdose Response Team. I'm also certified. I'm also fifth for the other place. I've been in Bangor since 2020. I've been working in the recovery field since then. I started with Fresh Start Sober Living in the main prison reentry network over in the Together place and overdose response in 5 years out there on those same streets of the US. Out there, with Ben and everyone else. This is pretty important to me. I'm a person in long-term recovery, what I consider to be long-term recovery. I'm a person who's formerly incarcerated. I'm a formerly unhoused individual myself. I've been there, I felt it, and Bangor's been really, really good to me. And this, I think, is probably a very good way I can help the community here.
All right, and then in the back, because we don't have room at the table, we have the non-voting city and school department staff people. If you'd like to just introduce yourselves and what your role is.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. If you can unmute your microphone by touching the button.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Bush. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Police Department. I've worked in public safety for the city of Bangor for the past 23.5 years. So over the last 5 to 6 years, I think one of the most dramatic increases that I've seen, or changes that I've seen in the city, is the number of unhoused in Bangor on the streets. And obviously it's concerning for all of us, which is why we're all here. I think I can bring a bit of a unique perspective in the sense that I've seen a lot of changes, and then I've talked to a lot of people that work and live and frequent the downtown area and the impact that this has had. So I'm glad to offer that perspective.
I don't know if you can
My name is Robin Stanicky. I'm the Community Development Officer for the City of Bangor. I also do a lot of housing programs, and I run the Community Development Block Grant Program. I'm also a sociologist. I have a background in organizational management, quality improvement, working a lot with clinical microsystems and substance use services, but it very much has always intersected with working with the unhoused population. I'm also a social worker, just another degree that I don't currently use. But I bring a lot of that experience into my work, especially with doing the types of plans that we are hoping to create here. I've done a lot of strategies in this type. So I'm hoping that I can be helpful with bringing you research and the latest best practices and the latest exemplars and white papers to really give you the information that you need to put something together.
Excuse me. My name is Bruce Hughes. I'm the homeless response coordinator for the city of Bangor. I've been doing that for the last 2 years, and before that, I worked at the Hope House through PCHC for 16 years. And before that, I worked at Acadia Hospital with children on the children's unit over there, and saw a lot of those children that I worked with go at the shelter when I ran that. So it's something that's always been true to my heart to be able to help support people that are on house, and I'm glad to be a part of this. And I work with almost everyone on this table, so I'm really excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Early. I work for the Bangor School Department as an administrator. Another role I have there is the McKinney-Vento liaison, which my primary focus there is working with students who are experiencing homelessness and providing resources to get them the education that they need. On this committee, I am the technical advisor for the Bangor School Department.
Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda after introductions will be a thrilling legal and ethics presentation from our city solicitor. No pressure.
It's gonna be riveting. I'm Dave Subcheck, the city solicitor. I don't usually share a lot of information, but I have been an attorney for 35 years and a Bangor resident for 30 years. My wife grew up in Bangor. We raised our children here. They went through the Bangor public schools, and have a lot of, we've lived here for 30 years. So I'm here tonight to give some training on the Freedom of Access Act and the Code of Ethics, and to spend a little bit of time during that Code of Ethics on conflicts of interest. And you can ask me questions at the end, or you can ask me questions in the middle, whatever you prefer. So the Freedom of Access Act is a state law, state statute passed by the Maine legislature. And it has two purposes. One is that the actions of public bodies should be taken openly. And the second one is that records of a public body's action should be open to public inspection. The idea of the Freedom of Access Act, which we sometimes call FOA, is that public proceedings exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. And this advisory committee is a public body that falls under the purview of the Freedom of Access Act. So there are two parts to that act. There's records and there's public proceedings. And it is the intent of the state Freedom of Access Act law that actions and deliberations of the city and its committees be taken openly, and that records of actions be open to public inspection. So any record that is in the possession of the city of Bangor or any public official involving the business of the city is considered public unless there's an exception that applies to it from a statute or another rule. And there are a lot of exceptions, so we will not be going over those tonight. But to be prudent, you should assume that any documents or communications created or received by a committee member involving the business of the committee is a public record until you find out that it's otherwise. So written communications, including texts, emails, social media posts, and messaging systems, or any other electronic communication regarding the committee's business should be considered by you to be a public document. You should consider all communications regarding the business or activities of this committee to be a public record, even if they are on your personal device. It is recommended that you create a new email address for your position on the committee and use that for any and all committee communications. It is recommended that you do not delete any communications, documents, or notes taken during committee meetings because they may be the subject of a Freedom of Access Act request at any time by a citizen. Finally, you should be aware that the city may request to view your electronic communications involving any business of the committee in response to a FOA request made by a citizen. Then there's the public proceedings part of the Freedom of Access Act. Committee meetings are public proceedings. As such, they must be advertised and open to the public. Members of the committee should avoid discussing committee matters outside of the public hearing in order to foster public understanding of the decisions of the committee. It is possible that back and forth communications, including emails and texts among a quorum of committee members, and in this case, that would be 5 or more members, could be argued to be a meeting of the committee. So members should be careful not to send reply alls to emails regarding committee business. For example, if the chair of the committee sends out an email inquiring with the committee members regarding the availability for an upcoming meeting, that's all fine. It's recommended that the reply to the chair it's not a problem to reply to that, but it's recommended to just do a direct reply and not a reply all so that we don't start running chains of communications back and forth that someone might argue is, an unnoticed meeting, an unnoticed public meeting not taking place in the public. So members of the committee should avoid discussion of substantive matters verbally outside of the committee meeting by email or by email, text, or social. So any questions about the Freedom of Access Act? Yeah.
So like the personal notes that I'm taking now, many of which are written in my own shorthand, that wouldn't make sense to anyone but me. Would they fall into this public record definition?
Yes.
Okay. So I should be retaining any notes that I take.
Yes.
If they're physical notes, do they have to be stored a certain way
or? As long as the substance of the note is retained,
okay,
then that is the important thing. I mean the original substance, not a summary.
I also had a question regarding the nature of us not conducting committee business outside of officially like committee sanctioned activity. Obviously, I do a lot of outreach. That's something that's very important to me. And when I sort of nominated myself for this position, I did it at the behest of my unhoused community members that I'm friends with. And so, like one of the things that I passively and always do and believe in is that their voice should be solicited, especially when it comes to committee matters. I mean, I view that as sort of something that I can give them, right? It's like a connection and insight into the committee, but it does seem like is that maybe colored by this sort of.
Well, the communications part that I talked about is to avoid having a meeting that would be considered a public meeting. And a public meeting of this committee would be a meeting of 5 or more. But communications that you have about committee business could be considered public records. So it wouldn't be an illegal meeting that you'd be having, but a record that's created involving the business of the committee, even if it's just sent with 2 people. If it's a part of the business, it could be considered a public record. So it would be okay to have that communication, but the record could be considered a public meeting. And we're going to talk more about about social media type communications and later in this talk, and about whether you're speaking as a private citizen or whether you're speaking as a member of the committee here. So we'll get into that a little bit more.
Question, so let's just say me and Amy just happen to want to chat about some ideas about healthcare, I don't know, just is that, do we need to, we could do it in person, but do we need to jot down a few lines what we talked about, even though?
No, that would not be a public meeting.
Okay.
Because you're not a quorum.
Okay.
But if you were talking about the business of this committee, your communications, if they were written down, could be considered a public document.
But not required to write them down.
No, yeah, there'd be no reason to write them down. But if they are written down, if they are texts or emails and you're texting about the business of this committee, in theory, those could be requested by some member of the public. They sometimes request all communications regarding the business of the committee within this date to that date or something.
That's a very loose stretch by some. For example, let's say the committee said, let's find some innovative health ways to deal with population, and Amy and I decide to take the charge on. That means that has become the work of the committee, wouldn't it?
Well, it doesn't become the work of the committee if it's not the work of the committee, just because you're sitting on the committee. But if what you're communicating about is the work of the committee,
okay,
then that would be something that would be public community document. If that makes any sense.
Quick question, if somebody sends me an email and I don't respond to it, and it relates to this committee, that's still a record under phone, is that correct?
Somebody sent you an email as a member of the committee?
Relevant to the,
Relevant to the, yes.
That committee and, that, and blah, 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 blah. And then whether I respond to that or not, that's a record, right?
Yes, if it's in your possession.
Okay.
You can feel free to ask more questions about that.
I'm just thinking about what I need to do with my personal email, like, how I actually approach that. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, I'll think of some in the shower.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you about some of the things in our code of ethics. And one of the things I'm gonna spend a little time on are conflicts of interest. No committee member should participate in the deliberation or vote on any item before the committee, in which they are a member of their immediate family, have a financial or special interest other than an interest held by the public generally. That's what our code says. And we'll get into a little about that. A financial interest is defined in our code of ethics as a direct or indirect interest having monetary or pecuniary value, including but not limited to the ownership of shares of stock. So basically, we're talking about something of monetary value to you or an immediate family member. A special interest is defined in our code as a direct or indirect interest having value peculiar to a certain individual or group, whether economic or otherwise, which value may accrue to this individual or group as a result of the approval or disapproval of a recommendation to the city council. And I'm going to just use an example to try to make it a little bit more concrete and understandable. The advisory committee, for example, is about to deliberate and vote regarding a possible recommendation to the city council on whether a nonprofit company that committee member A's spouse works for. And they're going to be voting on whether it should be recommended for approval for a grant, this nonprofit. One of the other committee members raises the issue as to whether committee member A has a conflict due to this employment of committee member A's spouse. This issue should be raised to the rest of the committee before any substantive review on the item is done, if possible. And the committee should find out through questions to this committee member A, the specific factual details about the potential conflict. The member should describe the potential conflict and honestly respond to any questions the other committee members have. The committee would then need to vote on whether this member has a conflict of interest. Committee member A should not participate in the vote but should supply the factual information to the committee so that they can understand the details of the potential conflict. So don't be shy about asking questions so that the committee can have a detailed understanding of the facts of the situation. So if you, these issues should be raised before, ideally before any substantive review on that item occurs. But if one of the members realizes a potential conflict and there's already been some discussion, we'd encourage you to raise that issue right then so that, you know, there's no more discussion of the substantive issue until the potential conflict issue is resolved. So, immediate family is defined in the ethics code to include your spouse, child, parent, sibling, including step and half siblings, and in-law relations, and domestic partner. So committee members should disclose anything that may fall into either of these categories, that would be financial interest or special interest, to the rest of the committee before an item agenda is discussed. If it is determined by the committee, that the committee member had a conflict, that committee member should leave the room for the duration of the discussion of that item on the agenda on which they have a conflict, and then return to the meeting after discussion on that item is finished. Any questions on that? Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about confidential information. Committee members are not allowed to disclose confidential information without proper legal authorization concerning the property, government, or affairs of the city, or use information to advance their own financial, special, or personal interest, or the financial, special, or personal interest of others. Our ethics code, confidential information under our ethics code means information, oral or written, that is available to the committee members only because of their positions with the city and is not a matter of public record. Our code of ethics also has a social media section, and it says that you should either disclose on your social media page or in the post that you're making, that you are speaking either in your personal private capacity and not as a representative of the city, if that's the case. The ethics code has a specific provision on the use of social media. It's section 33-7.1 if you're interested. Its intent is to respect protected speech and First Amendment rights, and its purpose is to offer a means to distinguish between personal opinions or comments and opinions or comments in one's official capacity as a committee member. Discretion and caution are called for when expressing views or opinions on social media, as use of social media by a committee member might be perceived by a member of the public as representing the city or the city government. This section 33-7.1D provides the language that you would need to use when using social media so that the public knows that you're expressing personal views and not any official view or view of the committee. The provision that it says that you should use on your personal social media accounts includes a qualifying statement that substantially adheres to this form. The views I express on this site are my own and do not reflect any official view or position of the city of Bangor or the committee, this committee. So when expressing any views or opinions on social media, you should either disclose on your social media page or in your posts themselves that you are speaking in your personal private capacity and not as a representative of this committee or the city. That section also says that inappropriate uses of social media includes disclosure of confidential or proprietary information about or relating to the city, its customers, or its employees, private citizens, or private businesses. any statements or posted materials that could reasonably be considered to represent the views or position of the city or one of its departments unless an official position has been taken. And posting or messaging in a manner that could reasonably give rise to an expectation that someone contacting you would receive an official response. Does anybody have any questions about that?
With social media, you could not be on it, it needs to be tagged. Is that considered like you potentially have to be like, that's like if they post something and then homeless committee posts like, tag him and I on it. Does that mean that they're expecting quote unquote response and then we make quote unquote be part of that even though we have nothing to do with it?
You're saying that somebody else posts you on social media?
They could say, well, hey,
You're not posting it?
I'm not posting it. It says someone posted, hey, these are, and then tag us on it.
Mhm.
And sometimes when it's tagged, sometimes people, it's like your name is tied to it, even though you have nothing to do with it. So,
But you're not
no,
expressing the
I'm
view.
not posting anything.
Yeah, the use of social media is for a member expressing
Okay.
the member's views.
What if someone on social media pertinent to the knowledge that any one of us is sitting on this advisory reaches out to us via social media, say tagging or DMing, and tries to conduct committee business? I mean, say they're a stakeholder and they're like, I would like you to inform the advisory that I have too many lemons in my house. That's a big issue. Does that become public record that we need to be archiving?
If you post on your social media page that the opinions and views that you express are your own personal opinions and not the views of the committee, then that should make clear and unambiguous that you're not speaking as a representative of the advisory committee. And you're free to express your own views like any other person. You have a First Amendment right to do that.
I do enjoy those.
Yeah. That sort of brings us right along into the next part, which is use of titles and disclaimers, which there's a separate section in our code of ethics that specifically applies to that. It's section 33-13.1. What it says is, in making written or oral statements, a committee member may use their official title as members of this committee only, one, when doing so does not violate any provision of the code of ethics, and two, the committee either has specifically authorized the member to speak on behalf of the committee, or the information conveyed is consistent with the official position of the committee and the statement references the appropriate position or decision of the committee, or when it is made clear and unambiguous that the official is speaking in their individual capacity and not on behalf of the entire committee. Disclaimers are required when there could be ambiguity regarding the capacity in which a committee member is communicating. Committee members should state, although I am a member of the Advisory Committee on Homelessness, I am speaking tonight as a private individual. My remarks should not be interpreted as representing the City of Bangor or the Advisory Committee on Homelessness. This prevents any ambiguity about whether you are speaking on behalf of the committee or not. Any questions about that section?
So how far is the reach of that? So I mean, if I were to go to a protest tomorrow about something that does not squarely fall under the homelessness crisis, and I mean, let's not even say it's in Bangor, let's say it's in Portland, or let's say it's in Massachusetts. I mean, am I still saying, although I am on homelessness, my opinions are my own? Yeah.
You're free to attend these things and you're free to speak at them. You have a First Amendment right to do so. But if you do make public statements at those things, you should make clear and unambiguous that you're doing it as a private citizen and not as a member of this committee. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on to gifts and favors. No committee member should accept any gift, favor, or thing of value, whether in the form of service, loan, thing, or promise, from any person or business which to your knowledge is interested directly or indirectly in any manner whatsoever in the business dealings of this committee or the city. Nor should any committee member accept any gift, favor, or thing of value that tends to influence you in the discharge of your duties on this committee. Nor should you grant in the discharge of your official duties on this committee any favor, service, or thing of value to someone else. Nothing in the ethics code prohibits your acceptance of gifts or favors from members of your immediate families. So I just wanted to make you aware of that one. And I am available to answer any questions. And if you can't think of them now, you can always pick up the phone and call or communicate with staff. You don't have to worry about quorums or anything if you're talking to staff, meaning the city solicitor or someone in the legal department, the city solicitor's office, or the city manager or other staff, other employees. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
All right, so next on my agenda was to just talk through the mission of the committee. In the materials that were posted online, there was a copy of the ordinance, which is what appears, in the city's official ordinance. The thing I would note is that after the creation of this committee, very quickly, council amended the mission of this committee. And that does not yet appear online because it takes some time for the online version of the ordinances to be updated. And so, as initially contemplated, the mission of the committee was to first and foremost create a strategic plan for the city's response to homelessness that is data-driven, evidence-informed, and that considers regional and structural coordination. Council considered critical components of that plan to include prevention, encampment response, and other necessary city policies to address homelessness. And it was council's hope that you would submit that strategic plan for council consideration within 12 months of this first meeting, so within 12 months of today. The changes to the ordinance that council subsequently made were to modify that mission to ask this committee to first consider a stabilization plan. The ordinance as enacted by council did not really define what they meant by stabilization plan, but having sat through all of those conversations, I think it can add some context. I think what council was really hoping for is to provide this committee the opportunity to make any number of immediate recommendations that you arrive at as necessary to address any critical prevailing issues that you discover through your committee work. Additionally, council modified the ordinance to provide that they might also refer specific questions to you for immediate consideration if something comes across their desk that they want your input on. I think one example of that is council has asked or did ask city staff, and we have posted an RFP process for potential day space. And I would anticipate that council will refer those RFP responses to this committee to consider and provide feedback on. Once this committee completes that initial 12-month task of creating a strategic plan, the ordinance then goes on to list 5 sort of ongoing tasks that I don't know that it makes sense to talk about in detail now, because if we get through those first 12 months, we can turn our attention to those. So with that,
I'm so curious about what they are though.
oh, well, we can certainly, so, the focus is really on, sustainable funding models, state and federal advocacy that we might want to recommend to more systemically address some of these issues. And sort of ongoing stakeholder engagement on the topic.
Just out of curiosity, does Portland, Lewiston, or Augusta have a similar committee?
Not that I'm aware of, are you aware?
You know, cities like Portland, Augusta, or Lewiston have a similar committee? Or are we the only one that does this?
The committee that the city, sorry, the committee that the city of Portland has is mostly made up of staff, but there are some community members. I can get more information. We did a trip down to Portland and I created a memo that we can bring to this committee with that information.
Question for you. Is it Robin?
Yes.
I think that is something that I would love to see some research on too, is not just how are other cities in Maine seeking insight on how to do this, but are cities that are reputed to have addressed their homelessness crisis well. What sort of committee structures are they creating? What sort of solutions are they employing in terms of the organization personnel? I'd be very curious about that.
So I guess at this point, I would, before we sort of move to logistics and next steps, of which there are many things to discuss. What questions do you have? Do you want to converse with one another about sort of direction and goals or things that you might need? I'll open it up.
When I got the call to this committee, I sat down immediately and started a list of things that I thought were important or could become important. The list grew to about 46 things. That's 30 years of experience with 46 items. I decided then that it was overwhelming. And I also thought to myself, geez, maybe we need to learn, we have to decide how to decide before we decide on what to decide. So I sat down with that for a little while, and I really think that might be something we want to talk about. Is like, how are we going to decide what to decide? What are the points that we will take into account consistently across every issue? Because I think there are some things that we can do consistently across every issue. You can identify what the pressure points are in the process. You can identify what the problems are, and you can also identify what the metrics will be. How are we going to count that this is better? So I think that there's some standard things that we can come up with, that we can decide how to decide. I think that would be a good thing to do.
Also curious about everyone here's values and what sort of personal ethics they'll be bringing into this mission, and sort of what are the visionary ideas about homelessness and being in community and meaning of Bangor.
Before we get any farther, is there a restaurant like that?
Oh, sure. Out in the lobby, and then to your left.
Okay, and to circle back to decide how to decide,
Yeah.
I think the most important thing, at least from my perspective, is the data, right? How many estimated, right, individuals do we have in the community right now who are experiencing the varying degrees of being unhoused? What percentage, as best as we can tell, understand that these aren't folks that are answering the door for the Census Bureau, and we understand that, but what percentage are we looking at that are in a mental health crisis versus are just transitionally unhoused? I think understanding the makeup of the community will help us be able to identify how we move forward, how we prioritize, how we can do the best work in the shortest amount of time. We've been tasked with using data-driven decisions. We need the data to do data, to have data-driven decisions. So I think that might be a good starting point for decide how to decide.
And from a data point of view, I would be interested in knowing how many HMIS connected agencies are there working with the city? Is everyone familiar with the HMIS, the Homeless Information System? They have a computer system that tracks quite a bit of this data. How much of that will we have access to when we ask our questions, and how many organizations are working with Bangor that are connected to the HMIS data? How can we get our hands on that?
So I think probably it's not identifying who we get it from, just what data we want first.
Mhm.
Then we can figure out with guidance from staff, okay, well, go to this place to get this data, and then they can help you. I think the other thing about data is more, I think a lot of places tend to create policies that's like a hammer approach to hit everything, and it's reality, we can't do that. And in fact, when you do that, you end up making one group worse than the other group. So I mean, just kind of hypothetically, if we talk about a small segment, certain things that they're frequent users of service that we can intervene, that could dramatically drop a lot of things too. And then there's also people, homelessness is not just people who are constantly out, in front of the library. There are people who are homeless maybe only 2-3 months out of the year, and then they're home, they have a home the rest of the time. There are people who are homeless because they're couch surfing and they're accessing the same services, homeless services. And then there are, of course, kids and families and veterans and that bunch in there. So I think you just got to come up with, okay, what the data, and actually you may already have this, we just don't, I don't know what it is. And then once we get that, and hopefully that could be a quick order item that we can now piece together what else do you want to also, because the reality 12 months is we don't have all the time. And we're not going to put, we'll make a dent, but not hopefully we can't make a huge dent just because there's too much stuff on. And then the policies may change within 6 months that all this work will just go windows out.
I also find a structured approach to individual problems, like identifying that there's 46 problems that just come to your mind. I'm sure we all have a list of 45 in our pockets as well. But I found that using the SBAR model can be really helpful at even like triaging our own priorities. I did one recently that I thought this was like a huge issue around like Hep C management. And then I did my SBAR and I was like, no, this is actually not a problem at all. And I've wasted a lot of energy in my brain that was useless. So I think utilizing like a structured approach as we kind of identify where we're thinking we want to spend the majority of our time and energy to determine, yes, like you said, is this the thing that we really want to focus on right now, can always be really helpful. And data is in a population, an unhoused population, is wildly difficult to rely on and come by, and sure you're well aware of that.
But one thing I would highlight on that, despite the data, is that, and it happens, I've seen it in big places, is if something on the news hits something, that becomes a priority.
Yeah.
And that's going to be where everyone's attention is. That becomes the biggest problem on the planet compared to when it's reality is it. And I think as a committee, we have to be prepared for that, to work with the city to say, okay, well, let's slow things down a little bit, because I don't want to be reacting to the loudest and not the neediest.
That comes with communication. How do you communicate to the public so that the most immediate and loudest is not necessarily the thing that we're working on? You're right. I think that boils down to communication.
I mean, one of the issues that I spoke on when I was first interviewed for the advisory, and one of the issues that I feel most passionately about, is that there's a major ideological divide in Bangor between housed and unhoused populations. And because of the acuity of the division, a lot of the political solutions that we could arrive at to address the house crisis are really disempowered and obstructed. And so I think that, that's one of those things that it's hard to quantify. I mean, how do we look at data-driven ideological divides between it's cultural and it's subtle. But I do think that it should be a focus of this committee, because it's going to be hard to to do any work, data driven or otherwise, without trying to heal the trust that seems to be lacking in the greater Bangor area.
I think what you're speaking to as well is trust building and the need to connect directly with the members of the affected population that we're trying to serve. When we're speaking about people experiencing homelessness and the community at large. And there is a fair amount of research and data around don't make decisions without me, right?
Right.
And long-term efficacy of any interventions created really should be inclusive of the members that we're trying to serve. So even though it might not have a number to it, you know, what you're describing, like there is research and evidence behind it. So you're there.
And I think that when we're creating our research priorities, like we can find out what the stakeholders think. It's just going to make it easier for us, and it's going to decrease the timeline that we're going to need for the whole project. Because I mean, the stakeholders, unhoused and housed, have a lot of natural insight into the issue, and you know they have lived experience. And I do think it is a concern that, you know, as you raised, that particularly the unhoused population is resistant to research bodies and certain federal bodies and working with those institutions because of the lack of trust. So, you know, I think that that would be something of interest that could help guide the research phase of our project is, you know, what do the people right outside this building think, you know?
I do want to caveat with that though, the homelessness situation is more than just what the folks outside think. So our charge is really to incorporate the whole community, business, homeless folks, regular pedestrians or whatever you can call that. And I think what happened is we just go with what's the popular way of doing it, because that's what everybody wants, but that may not be the right way because you miss the bigger things. People tend to look at, again, the shiniest things in front of them right now, which is whatever it may be. It could be it's totally legit. I'm not minimizing that, but in the context of things, it may not be the thing that we want to make most interventions. Now, having said that, I certainly agree with you that you shouldn't disregard their opinion. They should need to have a say in it and link up. And that's why they picked us. So hopefully we can put all this together to figure out what needs to be done. So,
like I said before, housed to unhoused, the unhoused here, no matter what interventions to take, are not going to feel safe and they're not going to feel part of Bangor if the issue is not infused with trust and love and compassion from all of the greater Bangor area. So, you know, in order to do that, we need to capture the whole diversity. So I'm with you on that, truly.
There's also the reality that we are never going to make everybody happy.
No, totally.
And so that is just a reality that all of us on this committee are going to have to be accepting of. And that, you know, we're going to have to look at issues and tackle the right ones, even if the shiny one isn't the right one right now. And that's going to come with some feedback.
And that brings us back to kind of like what Jay started with, which is how do we decide? Because there are certainly going to be points where we're going to have to agree to disagree, but we still have to come up with a united decision and solution or recommendation. So I think that brings us back to it.
So I chucked out the 46.
Well, I didn't actually still have them in my book here.
I put them aside, and I focused on a working framework for coordinated action. I'd like to pass it out when I have. This is a my swing. Those are all copies for everybody. Yeah, there's enough for everybody. There's two pieces to this. Let's see if there's two pieces to this. The first one is a framework for decisions. The second one is a possible philosophy statement that we might want to give back to the committee, maybe city councils. We might want to let them know that our philosophy is, and those are my two pieces that I think If you read the underlines, I did a really good job. Just read the underline for now. And it will tell you basically how. So basically, the goal is simple: build shared understanding quickly, identify the.
No. I can deal one later.
Move into coordinated action quickly. The steps are 5 steps, I think. You define the goal, understand the current system, identify petrophile, set priorities, define success, and communicate clearly. And you do those 6 things every time. What's the problem? What are the pressure points? What are the fixes? And how do we know what to fix? The outcome. And how do we communicate to the public so that they understand what our expectations of the outcome. I think that would work. Thanks for this.
Sounds so simple. Do that.
Second document is basically my philosophy, what that is, and I would incorporate monthly data. Philosophy is my philosophy is recovery. I believe that Bangor can recover. That we can confused, we can recover from and trauma, we can recover from financially, we can recover as a community. I don't think that there's anything that recovery can't. Yeah. So those are my donations today of ideas. How to decide and what our first communication with the city council is that we believe in recovery as the basis for our philosophy. Thanks.
I think you passing out this decision framework brings up a natural transition to one of the questions that I have for you all, which is certainly the traditional model would be for you all to elect a chair, and we'll need to do that regardless. And the chair would sort of take the lead in agenda setting and helping direct the committee. And certainly we could use that framework, but I was really hoping to gauge your interest in or feelings on whether you needed any other professional assistance sort of navigating the decision-making process, like a facilitator. And if you were interested in considering that, how you would like to go about selecting someone to assist with the work of the committee.
So do we have time to think on that? So like if we were to like continue with our current agenda as improvised as it is, and we're like, well, you know what, this works and we're happy. But then if the inverse were to be true and we're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? We then consult you and say, can we get the what's going on expert in here and something. So we could, yeah.
That's certainly an approach that we could take. I think my only caution personally would just be making sure that if you feel like you need it, we sort of identify that quickly so we don't sort of burn the committee's time for too long and then wind up feeling rushed towards the end.
And I would say just having been on other committees and things, like having a facilitator is incredibly helpful. It's incredibly helpful to have that person that can help steer conversation, help connect with the resources that maybe aren't necessarily sitting here with us. So I would highly recommend we consider having that person who's here just as an unbiased facilitator.
And I think it may be helpful for, even if you pick a chair today, have facilitators just for the next couple of meetings to help transition that person to get up to speed. And then that person can take the MG and go with it at that point. Because it's even whoever's, even if you're a chair today, it's gonna be a lot of work for that chair to figure all this stuff out in the next month or two, got all this stuff laid out. So I think he or she's gonna need help with that.
Okay. And if we do sort of proceed down the road of selecting someone as a professional facilitator, would the members of this committee like to participate in that selection process, either as a whole or maybe as a subcommittee?
I think that it would be interesting just to make sure that we're capturing maybe someone with lived experience, or someone who is at least genuinely passionate about the issue. That sort of thing matters to me, and it also like ties into some of the feelings that I have about the appointment of a chair. One, I mean, I just believe that for appointing a chair, it would be ideal to select someone with lived experience with homelessness. And two, it would be ideal to appoint a chair who wants to do the work, someone who, regardless
Has the time.
Yes, who has the time, the capacity, and everything else to do it. So, those would be my considerations.
But you can always do two co-chair, you can do two co-chairs, and bylaws require.
Our advisory committees are pretty loosey-goosey, good term, yes. Informal.
Good.
So,
Read that one.
Yeah.
Recognized in literature.
Yeah, no, because I think it's having that, it's just easier when, we can split the group into two, and also like give some redundancy if, let's say, someone's out, the person can take over.
We do have to have a vice chair. Correct?
does our ordinance,
The ordinance says both, I believe.
chair and
It
vice
says
chair?
chair, vice chair.
Okay.
And a sec.
Oh.
A secretary, almost everyone can be an officer.
The secretary is the video right now. Recording.
There need to be a human, sorry, go ahead then.
Yeah, one thing I really tell you in a facilitator is when they actually don't have any subject knowledge.
Yeah.
And this is not
It's not
like
process.
no one was dominating the
Yeah.
conversation. So if people are trying to say stuff and they're not getting in, that's why you have a facilitator. If they have a lot of subject knowledge, people start getting mad at them because they're like, it might be somebody who does have subject knowledge, but you don't agree with them, And so then you end up with conflict with the facilitator who's supposed to be there, not guiding the discussion, but making sure that the discussion is happening among people.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So when I hear that, my thought is, wouldn't the facilitator having subject knowledge give them insight into which voices would be best more than others? I mean, especially along the lines of inclusivity and diversity, right?
Typically, that's not been my experience. Typically, my experience has been facilitators end up driving the ire of certain members of the group when they show subject expertise, because they're making it seem as if this person's right and this person's wrong. And so that's been my experience with facilitators. It's strange because it seems counterintuitive, right? Like, wouldn't the person who's right be the right person to have? But we don't all know who the right person is, And so that's actually what I value in a facilitator. I wouldn't really be interested in a facilitator who already has kind of picked a direction. I'd be more interested in a facilitator is like, no, I have things that I care about. My training is actually in focusing on ensuring you all actually have a good conversation. It's a very difficult job. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like bias tends to come in a lot when
Yeah.
people have like subject matter expertise. I was actually just say the same thing, Ben. I like really like when someone doesn't, like you have a subject matter expertise that I don't have, but if that was what the conversation was about, then it's like sort of naturally drawn to you. And so I tend to agree, and then we're making sure the conversation is moving along, and then the chair and the vice chair really are the people who sometimes are like coming into play to help lead. Like if there's something that feels like we need to spend more time on, they certainly have the ability to redirect the conversation back to something. But then when there's conflict, it's super helpful when a person like
Neutral.
is neutral.
Yeah.
Well heard. And it does seem like a lot of people here from the vibe that I'm getting are leaning towards this facilitation model. So is that something that we would vote on, or how would we?
So
Decide.
So I think that would be a great thing to vote on if someone wanted to move, that you ask me to pursue some sort of facilitator. I think what I would need additional guidance on is anticipating this conversation. I've been having conversations with people, getting ideas, but I expect you all might have ideas from your own professional experience as well. And then another route we could go is to actually just like put something on the city's website saying, we're looking for proposals from potential facilitators. And so I would be interested in your thoughts on how you think it would be best to sort of expeditiously go about that in a thoughtful but speedy way. Because we, again, wouldn't want your wheels to spin waiting for that to happen. And then I would suggest a subcommittee of members, if we want to actually meet with people, might be the most efficient way. I think all 9 of you might be overwhelming.
Do the other committees use facilitation?
They do not, but we have not tasked any other committee with putting together a strategic plan. And so I think that's where my mind went, was like, we're asking for real tangible work from this committee. And so I really want to make sure that you all have the resources to produce that tangible work.
And I will say I've participated in 2 committees, one with a facilitator, one without, and the amount of actual strategic plan we were able to create with a facilitator present was refreshing in comparison to not having one present. It actually felt like a very productive experience versus that where you leave and you're like, oh my God, the same conversation again. So I mean, I would move to.
And the thing is, I also appreciate the fact that facilities can make it more expeditiously. I think, yes, we have to charge for, a whole year and then 6, whatever the interim plan. But reality wise, both the city and the people in Bangor and the city would like to see something within a couple months. I mean, that's the honeymoon period we're gonna have. And if you don't have anything in that time, people will start losing interest in this and people start losing faith in it. And I think that's the biggest hurdle we're gonna deal with. I think if facilities can help us get something low hanging fruit just initially, get some momentum, then will buy us more energy. And hopefully we'll create more groups, so a subcommittee look at certain things, I don't know.
So, do we have time today to do some like substantive work? I mean, create at least like a sort of model for what kind of facilitator that we would select if we were to vote right now and say yes, facilitator. I mean, it feels kind of like it would be a bit redundant if we were to vote right now and say yes, you want a facilitator, but then we would need concurrent sessions to approve the model. And so can we brainstorm that for a bit? I'll start. I kind of like the idea of doing this kind of like a bit merit-based with like sort of an open call for the facilitator. And we could, the subcommittee or whoever's on that could have some sort of guidelines to like expedite the most interesting applications and then present them to the major committee. And then any votes on those. They could have sort of like a finite number of like top level applications to bring to us, and just depending on what we think we're capable of reviewing, and go from there what people think.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it makes sense. So it's just to clarify, it sounds like everyone's hoping to secure a facilitator, us creating a subcommittee to review applicants, who creates like job description and takes care of posting that. Is that something?
That's something the city staff can do. I think what would be helpful as part of this conversation, which I think is what you were hoping to do as well, is maybe have like 3 to 5 sort of consensus driven characteristics or priorities that you would like me to include to make sure that what I then bring back to you actually meets what you're hoping to receive.
I think that's maybe was thinking too, like we would create, like the group would come up with, okay, these are 3 elements of whatever. So one a facilitator. And then Carolyn would go find that person. I think, I really worry that having a subcommittee is gonna add time that we honestly don't have much time.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think actually, if anything, we probably should give, again, I know there's a lot of stuff, detailed, but I think we should have, at least at the end of this today, which we actually got, what, 7 o'clock time was a good time.
So-
30 minutes left.
Yeah, we don't-
By the 7 o'clock.
So we don't usually, our committee meetings don't really have hard stop times. So I mean, if you're in a discussion and want to go for longer, but I think just from a productivity standpoint,
Yeah.
anything after 2 hours is
No,
probably.
it's- so I think if we could give the, say, just staff some basic tasks to do, other than just the facilitator, I think that would get us at least moving in some direction.
Sure.
That's my thought anyway, but I just, like I say, I worry, if we had the time in the world, I totally agree with it. All that's the vetting, sorry, but I think we have some faith that you can find the right person for us if we give you the parameters and then go from there.
Yeah, and then we can take that approach and then whomever I bring to you, I mean, you are certainly welcome to say, no, that does not meet what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, you could send the CV out and to us, hey, I'm interviewing so-and-so, and then if one of us is strongly objected to it, we say right there, hey, I don't think we're a good candidate for this reason.
So how do people feel about that?
I think there were a lot of good people that applied and stuff like that. I think that that might be a good chance for maybe somebody else who didn't get on this to maybe get in and help in the background.
But then would they have the subject matter familiarity?
Well, I think the important thing again is like neutrality. It sounds one of the,
And
so it sounds like neutrality is experience. Yeah, I would say probably number one. And then experience.
Yeah.
For
This
you would
is an
be number
actual
two.
profession.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
This is something people do for like legit a living.
Yeah.
So neutrality, experience.
I think our productivity focus, like, I mean, I think that's already built into if they're a professional in this field, but like somebody who's gonna help us move along, because 12 months is not much time. Yeah.
No, and I think like, I think we have to weigh what the asks of the larger community are too. And like, I can only imagine people listening to this meeting right now thinking about us spending a whole nother meeting, thinking about the fact that we're gonna choose a facilitator is like the first meeting of maybe only 12 or like something like that. And so, that's really important.
And that's where I think looking at experience specifically, having somebody who's experienced with facilitating discussions of topics that are sensitive and that are publicly relevant, right? I mean, whoever is gonna facilitate needs to be able to understand that there are dynamics beyond
Sensitivity. Yeah, sensitive.
sensitivity, but there are external factors that weigh on this committee, and the person needs to have that understanding as well. I think having experience, having facilitated similar situations would be extremely beneficial.
So I mean, I think we could phrase that as having a proven record in an analogous form of work. Would be good.
References upon request.
So would a more fair model be to, I mean, just for the time frame that we're given and the expectations that we have, be to, I guess, not to like to just rephrase so that I can understand what you're saying. Have the city staff put out a call for applicants using the tenants that we create, and then maybe give us some top level, using that rubric, give us some top level candidates, and then we veto them at the top of the next. Does everyone jive with that?
I mean, the way I understood was ideally, if we're thinking, well, part of what might color the decision is the frequency of which we're meeting. If we're meeting once a month, one would argue we probably need the facilitator like ready to go. Yeah, yesterday. If the frequency is more often, there may be more time to be able to review a candidate list, depending on when we're coming back and how regularly we attend that meeting.
Yeah, I'm in favor of just trusting city staff to hire a facilitator, sorry. Because I feel like you probably, as city staff, had to hire a facilitator before. You have a short list of skilled facilitators to draw on. And if they're in that profession, they're already somebody who we can trust because they're already fundamentally baked into them, have that neutrality, and we're just looking for the ones that have experience with difficult conversations.
Does the city have a bench like that?
I'm sorry.
Does the city have a bench like that? Or
So, I mean, yes, but I mean, when the city spends money, we're obligated to do a public sort of search
Yeah.
process.
Yep.
So we will do some sort of, based on the amount of money dictates the level of formality, but we will do some sort of, we're going to be hiring, we're considering proposals if you'd like to submit. Whether it's a formal RFP, or just something informal, like reaching out to people and requesting quotes. And proposals. I'd have to think through how much money we are likely to spend before I see where we are on that spectrum of formality. So even if we do have a bench, which we certainly do, we'd still likely need to do some sort of public process just for fairness.
And not to like put you on the spot just because I'm fully naive to that, like what does the turnaround time on something like that look like?
We really dictate it. I would think we could probably have candidates for you or a candidate for you. If, in my mind, I envisioned us meeting every other week, so I'll start there. If we were on that cadence, I think if not the next meeting, the meeting after, we could have someone to present to you as a option for.
And is there anyone on city staff that could kind of serve in the interim while we wait for that more formal person that might be able to, and I'm not volunteering.
And to be honest, I don't have the skill set, frankly. That's not my skill set. I mean, I think the challenge is that they're not gonna, the folks in my mind are not going to be neutral. Because this issue impacts almost every aspect of city operations.
Sure.
And so I think it would be actually challenging to find someone on staff who you could truly say is neutral.
So I guess my question to you is, your propositions seem to be based on the idea that if we delegated it all to the city, that we could adjust the timeframe to have the facilitator appointed by next session. But it sounds like what I'm hearing from the city is that's not going to be possible at all. It's going to take at least 1 to 2 sessions. Is that sort of
I think it would be challenging to turn it around in 2 weeks just because of the requirement that we have sort of a public process.
But it sounds like maybe reasonable to have some candidates in 2 weeks.
We could
Possibly.
I think it depends on how quickly we can get any sort of public communication out.
My other concern is I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of committee time on hiring.
Yeah.
Like I would like to already be done with this course. Because I feel like so much else is important.
Yeah.
That I like, but that's how I work. Like, I'm like, what is the quickest way to remove the obstacle, which is like we need to hire somebody so we can get to the substance. That's not always the best way for a group process though. So I'm just saying that's my preference, is that we remove as many of the obstacles as possible. Conducting a 9-person hiring process when we don't have our task in front of us yet doesn't sound productive to me, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. It's just my knee-jerk reaction is that's not a good use of our time together. So,
But I think right now, at least jumping out a little bit, because we, as you said, we already kind of all decided that we're gonna get a facilitator. And you're gonna help us figure out how to do that. And we can't, the process is a process and it'll take whatever time. So I think right now that boat has sailed. So let's move on to something that, okay, in the remaining time, is there something that we can come up as a group? To say, hey, can we ask the city to give us this now in preparation for the next meeting to get our work on? Sorry,
Do we need to vote prior
Yes,
to?
there's no real way for me to raise my hand, but I've been trying to get your
Sorry,
attention.
I will
Make a
pay for it.
suggestion on this. I was going to just suggest that in the background, while the facilitator is, whatever the process would be for that, perhaps you could give staff direction on the domains of educational materials that you would like to have, because that sort of thing, learning is something that we all kind of know how to do without a facilitator too, right? So maybe that's something that you'd like to do?
Sure. So I'm just gonna recite my understanding of what I'm going to take away and do to make sure that I'm leaving with the message that you're intending. And if you could just take an informal yes vote on that, that would be very helpful.
everything.
So We're interested in a call for sort of a merit-based selection process for a facilitator. I'm gonna lead that. I heard that we want them to be neutral, experienced, productivity focused, and particularly experienced with working on sensitive and highly public issues.
Yes.
Okay. That is what I will start working on.
There is one contention that I have, and it's about just leaving it up to the city's discretion. I do recognize that it is difficult for everyone to capture more time on this issue. But I think that one of the things that is impeding community trust is the perception that the homelessness crisis is being obfuscated by governmental workings and that the money is not being spent well. And so it feels like to me that it would not build trust if we just unscrupulously handed it off to the city. I would be in favor of reviewing top level candidates, not, for hours on end, but just again, ones that meet strictly our tenets that we've outlined and approving those at the top of the order of the next meeting.
You want to treat that as a motion?
I was gonna ask a process question, and I noticed Mr. Sevchuk left, or is just not available right this moment, but I guess how, it feels like we need to be able to do like a substantial amount of work outside of this meeting. And what I was wondering in his presentation is like, that's allowed, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like we can be all in communication and like, I know it's like, obviously those things are open to a request, but like, we can do all of those things as long as we're like remaining professional and thoughtful about what we're communicating about.
Right, and I think the important thing is actually the reply.
Sure.
And so I think I'll use myself as an example or the council as an example. You will have a counselor who will discover a really interesting report that they want all the other counselors to have. And they will email that out to all the other counselors and say, I thought this was really interesting, you should take a read. That's fine. That's public, it's FOA-able. But it is the reply back where someone says, I think we need to proceed with pursuing this exact model. Then it becomes conducting city business because now two decision makers are engaging on making a decision, not in public. I think that's when, and it's nuanced and it's different than, in your private life. But that's sort of it's really the reply. And that's why I think a city solicitor was trying to convey, like, the reply all is what's really bad.
And that's the other piece tying to what you were saying, because when you start reviewing candidates, you're doing the work of the committee. And therefore, we start having all this become, public information, all kinds of stuff. And the reality is this, we're a committee of only, 9 people. We have to count on the city to help us with certain things. And to me, this is an administrative issue. It has nothing to do with content. Content is when the facility tell us, hey, your strategic plan should include housing this way. That's interfering with me. But this person is administrative, no different. And I don't mean no different what you're helping us with right now because you're outlining. And I think to me, I have to count on city for those things because if I keep, I will just spin my wheels all day long trying to figure out what they can do. When we come up with when we come up with data things, hey, Robin, I need your help with this. I have to count on Robin to do the work, and Robin's going to get the data. I think that's where we have to rely on because of the fact that we don't have the people power at the time to do so.
So then why don't we take we could take a majority, one for leaving it with the city's discretion from beginning to end, or 2 reviewing top level candidates in the next meeting. Maybe like
that's really.
I think it's a good idea to take a vote on a motion.
So should I say I introduce a motion?
I move that we, and then what your and then you would need a second, and then we would vote.
And is that person who seconds someone who votes in favor of the motion, or are they just?
There's a second the motion to move ahead. Yeah.
All right. I introduce a motion to create a structure where the city reviews potential facilitator candidates based on the tenants we've provided and picks 10 top-level candidates for us to review at the top of the order in the next meeting.
Second.
Does anyone else vote in favor of that?
So is the room for discussion?
First,
Yeah.
yeah, now
Okay.
we discuss, or if there's further discussion, you can have it now. But we must provide the opportunity.
And just for clarification, are we creating a structure or we're just asking them to do it?
I guess we're asking them to do that,
Okay,
sorry,
so, okay.
clarification.
Okay.
So the motion was for us to review 10 candidates at the top of our next meeting.
Selected, using the tenants that we've created,
So the
from,
motion is for this committee to select from among 10 candidates.
keeping in mind that no matter what we do, according to the city's timeline, we are 1 to 2 meetings deep into this process, no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, and I have a couple of concerns, like if we put a specific number on how many resumes or CVs we see, I mean, in the reality of the hiring world today, that could take 8 months to get 10. And so I would refrain from.
I wouldn't know, just.
At best, say up to
10, perfect.
10,
Up to 10.
just to, because the reality is we're most likely not gonna get 10 qualified.
That's a great idea.
We realistically are probably gonna get 2 or 3, maybe. And at that point, it is my opinion that 2 or 3, I think we leave it at the discretion of the city to make that call. I think it's just us spinning our wheels if we slow that process down and look at 2 or 3 resumes. I mean, the reality is the amount of people that are qualified to do this is pretty slim. And at that point, the city really doesn't have a hard choice to make. It's gonna be 1, 2, or 3 that are qualifications. And I think we have to give trust to our partners from staff to be able to make those decisions on our behalf. And as Carolyn said earlier, somebody comes in here and we don't like them, we can always say, you know what, this person isn't working for us.
Yeah.
That's a mechanism for us to leverage if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I'm just really afraid, as I think Ben and Tony, you guys said, that we would be spinning our wheels if we spent another whole meeting discussing.
I mean, I have some faith that you guys pick a great candidate for this, and I mean, especially now you've seen how we roll. Well, no, see, now seen how we roll a little bit, so you kind of say, okay, I need this candidate for this kind of set. Well, and then we can focus on doing other things and just leave it to do,
So the motion on the table that has been seconded is a motion to have the city do sort of the open invitation to receive proposals and bring to the committee up to 10 candidates to review.
I want to make an amendment to the fact that I won't be wants to see those CVs, because I, like I say, I have to trust you to do that. I don't want to be picky.
So then why don't you introduce yourself?
So I think we have to vote on the
We
motion.
have to vote on
Yeah, so that's.
And then we
make
can
an amendment, okay.
then we can propose.
The amendment, okay.
Good so far.
So barring the.
So I'll call the roll.
Okay.
I'll go around the table. I'm going to apologize if I make long eye contact with you. It's because I have them memorized everyone's name. Alton.
Against.
Okay, Teal.
Or
Jason.
yes.
Against.
Tony.
Yeah.
Against.
And against.
Melissa. Against. Okay. So that was 1 for
2.
2 for
How'd you do it yourself?
Jason.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 for, 7 against. And so since we did formally vote on that, I think we should have a motion on the alternative.
So I will put forth a motion that the city will use the qualifications that we've laid forth to identify and select a facilitator for our committee.
I'll second.
Discussion, if necessary.
Again, I feel the same thing that I iterated before, that one of the deficits of trust is, and I've already seen the commentary and or I had people make the commentary to me that they feel that this is going to be kind of a rubber stamp committee, or at least a way to silo this issue. And I feel like the very first thing that we do is just say, well, the city can handle it, you know, it's not going to build trust in my personal view. And that would be the only thought that I would.
I think that's a fully fair point of view, and I think that's why we value having you here with us, is communicating that perspective. And I think that is the beauty to the process, right? And I definitely think that, you know, like we said, if for any reason a facilitator comes in that we think for any moment is not neutral, or sensitive, or facilitating in a way that we deem professional, I think we all, or I hope we all, would be willing to say, this isn't a good fit. And we can, you know, bring that forward as a group and say, thank you for trying to bring this human. This isn't a good fit for us, and we'll navigate it from there.
I think it's because of that and the trust that I have in all of you and your like relative expertise that like I'm excited to see the outcome either way. And you know, yeah, so.
I will call the roll and I will get more names than I got on Saturday. So the question on the table, or the motion on the table, is that the city will use the qualifications that this committee has already listed and select the facilitator. Alton,
In favor.
Teal,
Against.
Jason,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Brittany,
In favor.
Melissa,
In favor.
in favor, and
Okay.
Pat.
In favor.
Okay, wonderful. So that was a 8 yes, 1 no vote. So that's how we go.
Carolyn, the next one, you gotta go this way.
Yeah, well, no, and if you detach this.
Mindful of the question.
Yes.
About what some of the sentences we'd like
Yeah.
to hear from. Yeah. Because I'm mindful of like a number of students there are in Bangor schools and like the work that's being done for like those people in the housing that the other the impact on police. Like I feel like there's a lot of numerical data and qualitative, like, you know, wordy data that we could be asking for. So
Should we ask what data we want, but first maybe have Robin, somebody tell us what data they have? It's because they may have this stuff and then I don't need to even ask them, so. Go ahead, Robin.
Salad bar would like.
So the city council just approved the submission of the consolidated plan
Okay.
a couple weeks ago, which has a chapter on homelessness that I could provide this committee.
Yeah.
It has all of the data points I think you've mentioned so far, except for maybe some of the school ones that we could put together. We also have a myriad of HUD resources and technical assistance to provide us with any other data that, you know, might be able to fill in the gaps there. And I do believe I have an impact analysis on some of our public safety and public services, but we could probably continue to like build that up a little bit. And I think also we could put together a good memo about what, like, what we have done so far with our domains, essentially, like what actions have been taken. And then I can also bring that report that I created about Portland's Homeless Services Center and response, if that would be helpful.
Are there also data that the state has that we can pull and use for us to, like main care data?
We could do that. We can get the community health assessment, if you'd like to do that, Penobscot County's community health needs assessment. We can also pull out data from specifically the Maine homeless planning site, although I think most of the useful data for us I've got in the consolidated plan. But we can try to see if we can skim and see if there's anything else related from the healthcare standpoint.
And again, that includes like, folks with substance use,
Yeah.
substance misuse and mental health and physical health and everything. And the family services and better data. Because again, we may be inundated data. I'd rather have more data than we can as a group decide we don't need this, we need this and things like that, than just keep fishing for it. So.
And I know there was a little talk at the beginning of the session around like models and what other communities have used as a basis for their strategic plan. Having done street medicine in a very urban setting and street medicine in Bangor, this is not an urban setting. Despite our wild histories about Bangor being the wild, thriving urban metropolis. So after looking at models, I think it's important to really determine, is it truly an urban setting? Is it a suburban setting, or is it a rural setting? Because I will tell you, there's very little research out there on best practice street medicine in a rural setting.
Yeah.
Everything applies to an urban setting, and I have done many years in both settings, and they are drastically different.
So not sure you have data that's captured this, but I am curious how many of our homeless populations from elsewhere. Because almost every place I've been at, it's always at some sort of I-95 stop, and that's where people come, New York City, Washington DC, whatever, because it's where the bus stop is. So it gives us a good sense because I don't know what to say. I mean, it could be just a very small number within Bangor that's actually homeless, but everyone else is outside. That's a different intervention than whatever else.
I would also argue that folks that are unhoused, especially folks that are chronically unhoused by nature, travel around.
Yeah.
And many folks that maybe don't identify as being from Bangor in the past 12 months might have grown up here.
Yeah.
Or so I think it'd be really important to figure out how we kind of wrap our arms around like folks from Bangor. Like, what does it mean to be from Bangor?
Each MIS has a birth zip code. What is the zip code of your birthplace? I don't know if we can.
And-
look at-
Did I even
But even, I mean, I was born in Connecticut, but I don't identify as somebody that's from Connecticut necessarily, like no shades of Connecticut, but
Oh, you meant all the shit.
I just think it can get really tricky. Like that's where the data can get so skewed.
And it may be something that we say when it came to Bangor within the past 12 months. It's just because it's just it gives you that idea of fluidity with it. And then also and one of the things that they may even give us a temporal frame, because if you say most of this transition happens in the winter, because really we're July, but we got to think about what's going to happen in December now. So we have an idea, this is things we should be doing, because we know with tradition, we see in December, or not January, we see more influx of people, homeless coming because of services. Then we got something.
Again, I would just caution that, because if someone's just come to Bangor in the past 12 months, it doesn't mean that they weren't in Bangor 14 months ago and left for 2 months and then have come back. So I just think it can get really tricky to nail that down.
Yeah, and I would argue that, whether or not from people were born in Bangor, they grew up in Bangor, they left, and they came back to Bangor. If there's I think what we're addressing is like the behavioral issue that comes along with being unhoused, right? Like if there were people if this felt like there was some like people hiding in the woods and this were an issue that weren't impacting the greater community, it might not be getting the same response. And so the issue at hand is like that there are people who are here that are experiencing this crisis, right? And so if the data shows that someone has been here for the last 12 months, but they were born, it might not show that they got here when they were 2 and they left when they were 6 and they were.
But also that one thing, something like that would help us identify, we look at housing, some people may only be here 4 months out of the year because they're 4 months somewhere else, and their housing may be not the thing they're looking for, but they may be focused. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have any of that to even phantom test.
Just to, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, just to are the coattails of Amy, my experience from outreach is that there's a very large nomadic society in the unhoused situation in the Bangor area. So these are people who travel for cultural reasons and also for service reasons to different areas of the state, maybe to get access to street family in other cities and other states. And maybe they come back during specific seasons for seasonal work or whatever. So, I think where that community is present, I mean, one, it is good to try and study and capture like how many of these people are nomads. And I think that could inform us, but I do think that, I'm sorry, what Brittany said is like, you know, if we can create a way to tap into the underlying issue, and I think it also ties into, I think, something you said earlier, of like, we need to focus on where the droughts are in services, right? Like, if we can find a unifying thread between those people, it's great.
So if I might pose an idea, I guess, what I hear is that there's an interest in understanding what data we have, and maybe also from the city's standpoint, what we're currently doing, sort of what the current state of affairs is. We have 4 experts behind us who are gonna travel this journey with us. We could put together maybe from each of them, sort of from their sort of departments and silos, what they have for data and what they're doing currently. And that could serve as the basis of an educational meeting for your next meeting, understanding that then you all will have additional requests for a data that you'll want us to gather and pursue as a result of that. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
So what I heard that a menu is coming.
Question, are there, I mean, in your, you know, the feeling, are there programs doing work that you are not fully aware of what they're doing in terms of doing services for homeless?
Like community-based.
Community-based services that are not like working independently without any connection to.
There are a lot of mutual aid
I imagine there is that, you know.
agencies in Bangor that have no formal
Yeah.
incorporation that meet regularly and do
And do work that,
Mhm.
yeah. that we
I
don't know.
can think of several right
Yeah,
off the top of my head.
and I know how to capture that, so.
So that's a lot of data that we're requesting. What is a realistic timeline?
Mine's all ready for you guys.
Oh.
I've been waiting. I knew you guys were coming.
We could have a really robust conversation 2 weeks from now at a
Okay.
next committee
It's good.
meeting.
So
But do you think we would be able to have the information even just a couple days
Yeah,
prior?
yeah.
Yeah, you'll have it in your packet. If they'll get packets like everybody else, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just like everyone else. So we'll
Just for-
send it out the Friday before.
Just for clarification, would you like the last 12 months just as a round number over the past year?
Yeah.
Is it wild that I'm like 12 months feels like even a different world from 5 years ago?
No.
Not,
at all.
1 month feels like a.
I know, and that's why, I mean, I don't even know what question I'm asking, but I'm gonna start to try to ask it. 12 months ago, I think absolutely yes, I'd be curious 12 months, but I'd even be curious to compare that to like 24 months ago and see, so we can kind of start to map out
The
like
trend.
how this is drastically trending.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think we need to see this city's tradition with homelessness and see, you know, what can we learn, what changed?
Yeah.
I think that would be very telling. So again, it sounded kind of funny, but that is my question. Are we gonna get a menu? Are we gonna get this HUD data? Are we gonna get the city chapter on homelessness? Are we gonna get the impact study? Are we gonna get the data from Portland
Yeah.
before the next meeting?
So I think what we'll do is we're gonna start with what we have currently, sort of the package of information that internally we're relying on to make decisions on a day-to-day basis as it relates to this response and present it to you. And then I think the question will be, what else do you want? I think we may also have to prioritize a little bit by presenting to you the things that we perceive to be most important, understanding that value judgment may be different for all of you, and then you might follow up and say, no, I'd much rather have this other thing.
Are there other people collecting data that may support or contradict the city's data, just out of curiosity? I'm
Absolutely.
guessing there is, right?
Yeah, I mean, just back to the conversation about facilitator,
Yeah.
if someone has a bias in whatever way they're looking at,
Yeah.
way they present it.
Or even, I mean, within the city, I think probably, you know, Dave and his team are engaging in a different way with the community than Bruce is, right? And so as a result, the
Right,
population
everyone
that they're
has
seeing
different
is
metrics, things that they're measuring. And so we can compile all of those things and look at them as facets of the problem, but you might see that they could contradict each other because they're not measuring things in the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah.
Just a limitation.
I hear that there was no way to get the HIMSS data earlier. I thought I heard that maybe you said something. along those
For
lines.
HIMSS data, no.
Oh, good.
We can get real-time data from the homeless planning dashboard, but we could also go back to the source and get HIMSS data. if
Oh, good. Okay.
We want to.
Yay. Hey,
So I think that serves the basis of a pretty healthy agenda for next time. I'm hoping that you'll come with thoughts on a chair, vice chair, and secretary. And then we can sort of start the educational process. I have a follow-up for you, which is maybe this is a takeaway to think through how you want to receive public input as a committee. I think there are different models that we could use. For the opioid advisory committee, they sort of had some scheduled sessions where they received public input. The ACRE committee, the advisory committee on racial equity and human rights, I feel like I'm missing a word. They do it for 20 minutes at the start of each of their meetings. I would expect that this committee, at least to start, there will be a large number of individuals who are interested in giving public comment. So I don't know that the 20 minutes at the start of the meeting will be the most effective, but maybe think through how you might like to go about receiving public input.
So I'm just, because this is also an opportunity for public to vent, not as much as but for them to just vent about whatever stuff they have. I wonder if next meeting, whenever we decide that, is to split half the education and half public. Because and just throwing out there, just because I figure you're not going to use 2 hours, right? Unless you want to use 2 hours.
I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
I take it
Maybe
on.
not. Okay,
I feel like
maybe
there's a lot
maybe
of
not.
data.
Okay, so maybe that. Okay, maybe a different time frame.
But we could also we could divide it up. We could do an hour of education and an hour of public input.
I mean, I really, I agree. I mean, we want to hear from folks out there, their ideas and also what their, concerns are.
that's something I think that, just to use the model that you guys all demonstrated for me earlier, that I would love to trust the city on, at least to extent, what can we do to actually viably capture a community's opinion that is resistant to working with us through directly public channels. What can we do? How can we get the word out there and use our current outreach teams? Can we use our current outreach teams to go out and tell them, like, hey, there's going to be a forum and you matter. And
I think we can, we certainly can do outreach to encourage people to come in. I think that there are also natural barriers for folks who are living in homelessness to coming into a city building at particular hours to give feedback. So maybe something you want to think about is an entirely different model than what we normally do to receive public comment, particularly if your goal is to hear from people with lived experience who may not naturally come in to see us here. Is there?
I have a suggestion for that. I think
Okay.
some of the experience that can work with our homeless folks to maybe meet a couple times a month to talk about what's going on here at the committee level and bring information back would be very good.
Is this something where a facilitator could be helpful to be present during, public response? So that way they can also very neutrally help make sure that folks are able to articulate themselves and
Possibly, yeah. So maybe that should be an agenda item for discussion, but do we want to maybe reserve 20 minutes at the start of the meeting to accept public comment if folks show up and are interested in
for next meeting?
For next meeting.
Can they do by Zoom or is this only in person?
So traditionally, we accept public comment both in person and via Zoom.
And people could send it ahead of time as well too.
Certainly, if folks want to send it ahead of time, they can.
restriction that it has to relate to the subject of homelessness?
Yeah,
I mean, you just imagine, sometimes people treat it like open mic.
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Here's some interesting slam poetry.
Right? If the stakes were lower, it'd be okay.
So my understanding is that our next agenda items for next week are appointing a chair and vice chair, sort of reviewing the menu of research available and making requests, and creating a structure for how we're going to proceed with actual commentary, and actually getting
Providing an opportunity, yeah.
20 minutes of public commentary.
It's 20 minutes.
We'll start 20 minutes.
I have been on committees in the past, and how realistic you all think 20 minutes actually.
Yeah, I don't think that's a realistic time frame. I think you're gonna have a whole lot of even angrier people when they can't get to the mic. I know when we had a public comment for Bangor, I can't talk, parking committee, for parking committee, right? I mean, we set aside a whole separate meeting, we posted it out on the signs out on the intersection so that people knew to come in, and I think we were there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And so I think having a dedicated, I know it makes me shiver too. Having a dedicated time, what's that?
Do people get parking tickets while they're?
It's after 5, no. But no, I think having a dedicated separate time is definitely the way to go to ensure that the most people can be heard.
And what would your proposal for that be?
Well, I think just we
Have a
as a
meeting?
committee need to decide on a separate, I think it's a separate meeting. You set it up and also give enough time to make it truly public, right? Give the time, enough time for city to put it on their Facebook, to put it on the website, to make every effort so that people understand that it's happening. Because the other thing that can happen is you do this and then everyone goes, I didn't know about it. You're just trying to sideswipe us all. It was a farce.
So does that include tabling the 20 minutes for next?
I think so.
I kind of feel the same way. I think 20 minutes and then you're gonna try and put it off. People are gonna be very frustrated, they're gonna be very upset, and then you try to have a productive meeting either before or after that, it could really go sideways. So I would say next visit, or next meeting rather, should be focusing on the education component, the chair and vice chair, and then deciding how we're gonna be able to hear public opinion.
Is there a way that people could share views with us as a whole committee? Like, is there an email address that they could send stuff to or something?
Create something specific to them.
That would be excellent.
Good. And then you can send to us.
And I think just to put something out there so that people don't feel that that there is no lifeline. Rather than this 20 minutes, which I do feel right at risk of being tokenistic. We could have that email out there circulated, and we could look at those, like you said, during our ongoing work outside of committee hours while we still work on it.
Yeah, because that actually would, as you said, give them feedback. They heard a meeting, they didn't like it, they can send it right back to you rather than wait to the next commentary session. I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay.
So would somebody like to introduce a motion about the 20 minutes, or are we just free to?
Do we need a motion for that?
No, we didn't.
I think,
We don't even need a motion.
I think there's adequate consensus.
Yeah.
So, but I will add an agenda item that at the next meeting, maybe we can select a date and format for a lengthier, robust public comment period for the committee to hear from people in person. I will right away move on the creation of an email
And
address.
the city's having a listening session, correct?
So our public health department is doing a educational / listening session coming up, and you all will receive invitations to participate in that. In soon, do you have dates?
We did, but I think that we're back.
Okay,
It was the 23rd at 6 p.m.
Change.
okay.
Rest in peace.
People coming by now.
But that's a good point. That will be another opportunity, if this committee wishes to participate in those sessions to hear from.
Absolutely, for me.
So, the last item that I would like to nail down before we adjourn, although I'm not forcing us to adjourn, is just the next meeting date and just the meeting schedule in general. So advisory committees traditionally meet after what are deemed traditional working hours. However, that's not a requirement. So if it was the will of this committee to meet during the day, city staff could definitely support that. But I know everyone has jobs, and so that's probably not feasible. But I wanted to let you know that we could do that if you wanted to. Anticipating that we will have public participation, at least for the first few meetings, I've anticipated scheduling these meetings in council chambers, which means that generally speaking, Tuesdays and Thursdays are gonna be the best days because Mondays and Wednesdays are usually either council or school board. Tuesdays generally work.
I know I cannot do Mondays and Wednesdays, so.
Perfect. Us neither. And so for the next meeting would Tuesday, July 28th at 5:15. Members. Yes,
July.
July 28th.
I'm just trying to think about like, sometimes we are not, because it's every 2 weeks, at least right now. Sometimes someone is gonna miss a meeting.
Sure.
Because of it, so.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a good idea for the participant remotely. It's just almost if you can't come, you just can't come.
I mean, we do have the ability of, so we have a policy
Yeah.
on this so we do, our policy does permit board members to participate via Zoom if they would.
I think it's that kind of thing is easier when everybody's on Zoom.
Yeah.
But when one person's on Zoom, but it's end up being a spectator.
It's going to be a problem for me. There will be transportation issues over the next few months where I will have to zoom in, so.
So we'll work on that.
I would also say that it's a major accessibility issue for me. I'm disabled, so the option for me to walk here is not always fully available. And it would probably increase my capacity to attend meetings if I at least had the option to.
Well, good facility will help navigate.
And and we do always have to have a physical location for the meeting because of how, so at least I would have to be physically in this
Comes
room.
winter time, it may be a whole lot easier to, so we don't skip meetings. Which is basically like between September and May.
Yeah. And I think due to the amount of work that this committee has to accomplish, certainly we are just gonna have to plow ahead even if folks might not be able to attend every.
Yeah, because I think the reality of like, I know having like a full-time job and a full-time family and all of the things. Yeah.
The transcripts will be available though, won't they?
Well, and the video will be, you'll be able to watch the full meeting. So as soon as I close this, it'll appear on YouTube.
How long do you keep those things in archive?
Oh, gosh, I don't know that we've deleted that ever.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's a point where YouTube says we can't take any more. I'm not sure. It's
Years.
So is there anything else that anyone would like to chat about this evening?
I just want to say this is first me, there's a lot of work to get done and I think like it's, it's just a lot of its organization. I think once we get to the meat of it, it's actually becoming more productive and more fun. Right now, it's just getting the paperwork sorted out.
Being trained on ethics and legal liability.
No, sadly, I mean, that's what we gotta do. And the thing is more for, I mean,
It's gonna have an
yeah, and the thing
ethics
is like I've been in some of these committees and both the levels and the amount of stuff that you get for it because you are sitting in public committee. It's like, gotta be kidding me, but yeah, it happens.
I'm glad to be supported in that, honestly. It's easier.
Some questions, like I know that he has suggested that we get specialized personal email to use for this. I mean, you can't do a Bangor, because it becomes, you gotta do trainings and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and so we don't typically, and particularly because in this role, it's sort of a temporary
Yeah, it is, yeah.
leading. And I think it is a good best practice to do, you know, a Gmail for
Yeah,
this.
Gmail's.
I will also say from my experience, most advisory committee members don't. Because of the administrative work of having an extra email address. So
Yeah,
we certainly defer to you on that judgment.
Oh, it is Gmail, it's an extra address anyway.
And if you're gonna create that public kind of email.
That should take away the necessity for folks to email you. So I do need a motion to adjourn if you're ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Any objection? If not, we are now adjourned.